welcome to vChat. We're coming at you live from the South Florida VMware Regional User Group. I'm David Davis from VMwareVideos.com and TrainSignal. I'm glad to be here, honored to be here with the distinguished Mr. Josh Atwell of vTestRec.com and VCE. How you doing, Josh?
I'm doing well. How are you doing, David?
I'm great.
You having fun today?
I did.
Good.
I did. Yeah.
Good.
I gave my first keynote ever.
I gave my first keynote
You gave
ever.
your first keynote.
It was a moment of firsts for us.
Yeah. It was exciting. A lot of fun.
Yeah, and it really tied into what your keynote was all about.
Yeah. Saying yes, taking chances, trying to make the most out of your career, and become a success in technology.
Yep. And did anybody bite you?
No, nobody bit me.
No.
And I even got some compliments afterwards that
See?
they appreciated the topic.
Yeah. So people out there, if you're trying to do stuff and you're not sure if you can, neither one of us got bitten on our first keynote.
That's right.
Speaking in public does not get you bitten.
That's right. So what'd you talk about?
I more or less did my session from VMworld, become a rock star with Power CLI and vCenter Orchestrator. Some slight updates with some of the new stuff and how things work, but more or less the same idea, trying to let people know that you can start orchestrating and automating and identifying locations in your environment where you can start making your life easier. Yeah.
I found it interesting that there's a new integration with vSphere 5.1. How it integrates with vCenter, the web client even. So that's some stuff I'd like to check
being
out.
able to assign it to a resource type, to like a virtual machine. Right-click the virtual machine, for instance, and be able to initiate a workflow. Yeah.
And one of the things I didn't know is that vCenter Orchestrator doesn't just orchestrate vSphere tasks.
That's correct.
It can orchestrate Active Directory, email, I don't know, a long list of other stuff.
With the right API, it can actually orchestrate anything. You could orchestrate your lights in your house if they have an open API that you can connect to. And that's really the key for orchestration in general, is the accessibility of whatever you're wanting to orchestrate, to make sure that it does have something that you can connect to and execute changes. So
That's cool.
vCenter Orchestrator is very, very powerful. You know, I won't talk poorly against various products out there that are out there for workflow orchestration, but if you're working on an orchestration product, take note, openness is better, right? The more that you give people who want to use these products power to do what they need to do, the more successful your product is.
And when you say it's open, I know you said that a number of times. What's the difference between vCenter Orchestrator versus just vCenter? Are you saying it's open because it can work with other products?
Yeah, no,
it's not open source software.
Right, no, it's not open source software.
Okay.
So by open, I mean is that there are some products that are very limited in scope, and they're very, very good at what they do. So I'm not being disparaging on whether or not they can execute what they're designed to do, but they lack full flexibility, right? Because they only allow you to work within the confines of their product, and they don't allow you to necessarily extend into something that wasn't already there. So with vCenter Orchestrator, you can actually develop your own plugins and incorporate them into the application.
That's cool.
There's other products where that's currently not an option, right?
Okay.
You're kind of tied, whether it's specific for their hardware or their application, or and it's mostly hardware vendors that are doing that, because everybody recognizes that, you know, whether you want to call it cloud, software-defined X, orchestration is the only way to sustainably, you know, build that out, to make sure that everything is consistent and correct, flexible. You know, it's the only way you're going to accomplish it. And that's why you see all these major players investing heavily in orchestration and making sure that they have a product that makes their product easier to consume.
Yeah. So does Orchestrator, is it licensed with vCenter?
It is part of vCenter Server. That's
Okay.
correct. It's a free product, so you don't pay for it per se, but it is included with vCenter vCenter Server.
Okay.
And they also have it as an appliance that you can download as a separate appliance, which is the way I initially set it up in my home lab.
Okay.
And that's a pretty good setup. You just download, I think it's an OVA. You download that, run it, and get it connected to your virtual center server.
And then it has a Windows client?
It's a
web-based client.
A web-based client.
Web-based client.
Yep.
Okay.
Most of the work is a web-based client.
Okay.
Yeah. Which works because everything in vSphere seems to be moving web-based.
Yeah. Well, cool. And then, so the other thing I learned about was that there's a new beta of Project Onyx. I'd used the older Project Onyx, but now there's a new beta, and it can export scripts to various formats, including vCenter orchestrators, JavaScript.
Yeah, well, actually, Project Onyx was able to do that very early
Oh, it
on.
was? Okay.
Yeah. So
What's
it's been
new
able
with
to
the
do
beta? Is it just...
I think it's just, I actually haven't downloaded the latest. I think it's just maturing.
Okay.
And it's becoming, there's been changes, and with those changes, they're having to be a little more flexible, and I think it's just part of the maturation process.
Okay.
Yeah. In truth, I haven't touched Onyx. My new role doesn't have me doing a whole lot of automation yet. Maybe at some point I'll find a need.
But it's got a cool black screen.
Oh, yeah.
And I noticed that was very
screen,
different from the old one. It's this cool black interface.
Yeah. Okay, well, it's got to be stylish if
It's
you're
kind of
going to
like
get people
James
to use
Bond.
it.
I mean, maybe Alan Renouf came up with that cool black interface, although
Maybe.
I don't know.
I don't know. Well, he was working on his own. I think he did his own fling on the labs. I think he had.
Recently, he has a Power CLI vCenter upgrade checker. I think is what it's called. Yeah,
Yep.
I did download it and try it, and a very useful tool.
I should have had that prior to my last debacle in my home lab because I broke it.
It checked so many things that I didn't even know.
Right.
I should be checking. Yeah.
Right.
All these Active Directory permissions and different things it was looking at.
Well, on that note, how long would it have, if you had a checklist, how long would it have taken you to go in and check all those things?
Some of the things I don't even know. Maybe I would need instructions on how to go check those things.
Right.
But it did it in just seconds. So
right.
For me to be able to do those things, I would guess an hour or something.
Power of automation.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. And it did it accurately.
Yeah.
Every time.
And it even had a pretty interface, a little Windows app. It wasn't just.
So Alan's stepping it up.
He is.
He's getting outside of the console into.
Maybe he summoned Power CLI Man to help him with that.
Yeah. We haven't heard much from Power CLI Man.
No, we haven't.
I wonder if Power CLI Man's a little sad because Alan moved over to the States.
Maybe.
And so Power CLI Man, please come back. We love and miss you and really need to see you more.
We need more superheroes in virtualization.
I agree. I agree. I wonder if there's a vCenter Orchestrator guy that's going to emerge at some point in time.
Maybe. He'd have those cool circles on the front of him. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, and he could have like his mask be like really cool O's or something.
Yeah.
Man, we are really stretching on this one.
And he could summon the power of flowcharts to
that's right.
Connect
he has
tasks
a process
to create workflows.
Yes, a process attack.
That's right.
Kind of like the Michelin Man throwing his tires.
That's right. So that was interesting. Makes me want to learn some Power CLI.
You should.
I should.
It's good for you.
I should.
I expect some serious train signal stuff.
And now, one of the things you told me is that you did a vBrown Bag session on using Power CLI to pass, or not just pass, but to be more efficient in passing the vCap DCA.
I did. Yeah. It was, I guess, mid last year. But yeah, so essentially, with Power CLI, it's one of the tools that's at your disposal when doing the DCA exam. And for those of you that aren't familiar, the vCap DCA is a live environment where you log in and you get a list of like 80 to 100 tasks. I don't remember the exact number. And then it's like going to a customer site. They give you the list and they say, now we can only pay you to do for 4 hours of work, but you have to get it all done. And so in that brown bag, I say that with Power CLI, if you learn these commands and do these things, the first thing you should do when you log into your environment for the DCA is fire up Power CLI, connect to the Virtual Center server, and just here's a couple of things just to gather the information, because they're going to throw stuff on you about the data stores and switches. If you know about the products that they talk about or the features that they talk about in the blueprint, those are things that you're going to need to check, right? And obviously I can't get into specifics about what they ask, in part because I don't really remember. It's been over a year. But by doing that, you're getting a leg up because you can start identifying potential problems before you even get to that question.
Yeah, yeah.
So hopefully it's helped some people. But PowerCLI is your buddy.
Yeah. So the vBrown bags, I checked out the website and I was amazed. And you were telling me that they've expanded around the world, like world tour for the vBrown bags.
We have expanded quite a bit. Yeah, we've got so late last year we started. So we've had the U.S. We've had Asia Pacific with Alistair and Nick. You know, they joined up last year and they've done a phenomenal job. They did the vCat DCD, and I think they did the vCat 5 DCA as well. I mean, just tremendous work. They're actually the guys behind AutoLab as well. And then we recently started EMEA, so we've got guys in Europe that are doing a podcast. We have guys doing Latin America now, so a Spanish-speaking podcast.
Wow.
For the vBrown Bag. And just last month, we started in China. So we've got people in China that are doing vBrown Bag podcasts in Chinese. Yeah, and Cody Bunch just recently started the OpenStack vBrown Bag. So it is part of our long-term strategy to kind of branch out beyond VMware specific, but still really focused on the learning, career development. I mean, the OpenStack talks a lot more about the technology because there's really not, I don't think, a certification track involved with that yet. But you can believe that as soon as they have one, we'll be on top of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're trying to help enable people to get certified. Well, which so are you.
Yeah, doing our best.
Does that mean we're enemies? Are we competing?
No, we're all helping the certification community. In fact, Train Signal's a sponsor, longtime sponsor.
A longtime sponsor
of the vBrown Bag.
I actually get that question a lot.
Yeah.
Like, aren't you guys worried about competing with Train Signal? I'm like, oh no, theirs is much better, but yours is.
I think they complement each other well. I mean, you know, Train Signal is more structured, specific topics from specific instructors organized into a course.
Correct.
Where you go through kind of from start to finish. Whereas the vBrown Bags are an expert who comes in on a particular topic and talks for 1 hour, and you have sort of open forum Q&A with that expert.
And we fumble around a lot.
Yeah.
We work through it. We get questions, and then we put it on YouTube and on iTunes.
Yeah. So I think they complement each other, a lot. And I recommend people, to go check out the vBrown Bags if they're interested in certification. They want to improve their skills.
And I recommend Train Signal if they want a really high quality production. But yeah, that's one thing that's always been good, I think, about both organizations. It's very community focused.
Yeah.
Obviously we want viewers because that helps us get sponsorship for like the Tech Talks at VMworld and the giveaways like the vBrown Bag of Awesomeness that we did last year.
Yeah.
And well, you guys have been great with the VMUG events like this, and giving out resources and helping people get trained. So I think we're in a great spot to help folks.
Absolutely.
Hopefully we are helping people. I think we are.
I hope so. And that was what my keynote was about, was trying to help people come up with a plan for improving their career in technology, and then just working through that, learning, improving it, getting certified, and hopefully achieving something great.
So what was was that what really made you want to do that keynote?
Yeah. I mean, I felt like recently, I've achieved some successos. I feel like, and that doesn't mean I'm going to just sit back and do nothing. But
well, I mean, we know that based on your view in your room versus.
No, that was by chance.
Yeah,
that I had the ocean hotel room view. Surely.
I see the highway. It's cool.
But no, I wanted to try to share that with other people to help them, because I get a lot of emails on my Train Signal email account from people who are like, I'm trying to get started in virtualization. What should I do? I want to get my VCP. What should I do? A lot of people around the world even, just looking for guidance.
Right.
And so, that was kind of where the idea came from for the presentation.
So you had, 5 key takeaways or key things that people can do. What were some of those? See, now I'm interviewing you on your own podcast.
Yeah. So it started off with, have a target in mind. What's your goal? And, brainstorm that goal from there. What are all the crazy things you might be able to do to accomplish that goal? And then from there, what was the next thing? Network. Network. So I talked a lot about using Twitter and social media and networking at conferences and networking, really every chance you get. And then after that, learn. So I talked about, certification and, all the different resources that are available. Brown Bag, some of the things we talked about, even here at the VMUG. Lots of opportunities to learn and then prove it, I believe.
That sounds right.
Yeah, prove it. So, go out there and you could prove it with a certification. You could prove it by even just doing a project at work, maybe a server consolidation where, you are able to document, okay, I saved the company $1 million over 5 years by doing a server consolidation. Whatever, and maybe you prove it by becoming a vExpert or, getting a raise or a promotion or something. And then, going back, completing the circle by evaluating, how did you do, what could you do better, and it comes back to that continuous, never-ending improvement, kind of circle of improvement.
So no complacency.
That's right. There's no time for complacency. So.
Well, unless you just need a break.
Hopefully one day, when you're old and gray, you'll have time for complacency. But until then, just keep persevering.
Yeah, and one thing, like when we were talking last night about about your talk, that I generally tell people is that don't ever look at anything that you're doing to improve your career as singly focused. Right? Yeah. Always find ways to tie it into how it improves your job, how it might benefit your employer, how it might improve your ability to do other things. Right? Public speaking is a great thing. It helps you speak better. It makes you condense and think about your thoughts. Sharing knowledge, it's going to translate better in whatever work you do because you'll learn to communicate with people better. If you read a book, don't just read a book. Write a review on it.
Right.
Share how it applied to you. That way, that extra 30 minutes you spend to get that review is probably going to help somebody else to know, should I buy this book? I don't know. This is what I'm trying to do. Oh, look, there's a review. That guy's exactly like me. Is it because there's people at every level. Yeah.
So there's multiple facets of it, and it's also, to me, it's a snowball effect to some degree. You do one thing and that evolves into something else, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger.
It is definitely a snowball effect.
Yeah.
Today's miracles are tomorrow's expectations.
Right.
Just like I said, you'd be surprised how fast one thing leads to another.
Yeah.
Which is a good thing.
Yeah,
that's
it is.
Exactly what we work for, I think.
It is, but you can't just look at it as, there's so much more to it than just that one thing. So, for example, writing a book, it might be painful to write that first book, but that book is going to get you recognized, and then that recognition might land you a job, and then that job might help you to speak at the keynote at the VMUG, and then the VMUG leads you to speaking at VMworld, and it's a big snowball effect. So.
Yeah, and that also touches on another thing that I talk with people about, and even my stepbrothers, stepsisters. They asked me one time, they're like, how can I find success in what I'm doing? It's like, well, set a goal, but don't be fixated on, I want to be a director of IT somewhere.
Yeah.
Well, think about it a little differently. What is it about director of IT that you want to have? You want to be able to influence influencers. You want to be able to, lead a team. You want to be able, and then focus on those things. Learn the skills required. Jump onto activities that help you, bolster those skills. Because you may end up finding that you don't want to be a director of IT. You want to be a director of product management. That actually is what you wanted to do. But if you fixate on director of IT, you're focused on the wrong goal. The goal is really find out what that is about director of IT that you want to be, and then align to those skills and those facets, and I think you find success faster that way.
Yeah, I think so many people, they just don't know all the possibilities out there. For them.
No, you can't possibly.
Because in my 20s, I wanted to be CIO. That was my goal. One day I was going to be the CIO at a big company. And as I got older and learned more and found out what it was really like a little bit to be a CIO, I was like, forget it. I don't want to be a CIO. There's many more things I'd much rather do. So,
like coming to VMUG conferences.
Exactly, like doing this kind of fun stuff.
Right.
So, I had actually the sound man here at the conference come up to me after my presentation, and he said one of the mistakes he made was he was in IT for many years, but he got focused on just doing whatever the company wanted him to do, and he completely stopped his personal development. And he didn't stay up to date. And then, the economic downturn, he lost his IT job because his skills weren't updated. He wasn't able to find a new job.
Yep.
And so, that was one of the other points I tried to make, which is, make sure you've got, yes, your company in mind, but also you and your personal brand, in mind in career development. Because I think a lot of people just forget about that.
Yeah.
So.
One thing I tweeted about it recently. I was talking with my wife, because I just switched jobs like 5 weeks ago, and one of the things that's really exciting for me is I do regular updates to my resume and on LinkedIn so people know that what I'm doing, and I don't ever let myself get behind on those things. It's very important to keep your resume up to date, and a good litmus test on whether or not you're in a job that's satisfying to you is if you get excited about the things that you're putting on your resume, right?
Yeah.
If you're putting items on there and you're like next week I might go and update my resume, I get to say that I spoke at the South Florida VMUG, and that excites me.
That's a good point.
Or I get to say that I've enabled so many customers in realizing their full potential in their infrastructure and what they can provide to their business.
Yeah.
Right. Those types of things are really exciting to me, and I can't wait to put them on my resume.
Right. You don't want like 10 years to go by and then you have to sit down and, okay, now I'm going to make a resume. I've never had a resume, now I'm going to make one, and try to remember all the great things you did.
Quarterly.
Right.
Quarterly. It's Microsoft Word is great because you put the information in there, and then if you're ever at a point where you want to put the resume out there, or you feel like you need, if the time comes that you need to find a job, you go out, look for work, delete lines that don't necessarily apply. But you're always ready, and you don't have to do that because, and I say this frequently as well, there's two people in this world that always think I'm awesome, me and my mom. And my mom is not a good referral for a job. Right? So if you do things where other people thought you were awesome because of it, you got to keep track of those so that you know who to reach out to whenever you're ready to pursue that next step in your career, either voluntarily or involuntarily. Yeah. It's always good. And that goes back to the networking part. Right? It also helps you keep track of those really valuable connections because nobody's going to be a better champion for you than you, but it's always good to know people who like you.
Yeah. And I mean, that's a great point. I mean, in many cases, if you've got a good network of people and you need a job, you might not even need a resume. Your name, what you've done, they know, they've seen, they say, oh, Josh, you want a job? Okay, you're hired. I think there's no better feeling than having your reputation or your brand, speak for yourself, so somebody doesn't have to look at a resume and say, who are you again? Yeah.
The whole reputation preceding you thing is interesting. Having just recently gone through the experience, it's it definitely, if you're doing it right, those conversations are much easier.
Right.
And I never ever plan to be an expert on anything because I always know people who are incredibly smarter than me on all the topics that I have high proficiency in.
Right.
But I communicate well.
Yeah.
And so I play on that.
Yeah.
Right? That is my biggest strength. So I recognize that. So when I go into a situation where people want to, it's nice when people say, "Oh no, you've got technical chops. I'm not really concerned." It's not necessarily that I have the top technical chops. It's that I communicate well. I exhibit that I can learn that stuff quickly and communicate it and things like that. So
and that's the best skill to have, is the ability to learn quickly, understand quickly, and then educate others.
Yep.
Because technology's gotten so complex, there is no one single expert on anything. So just the ability to pick it up quickly and use it and sell it and talk about it and blog about it.
Because how many scripts did I show in my presentation? One. Get VM, pipe, select star.
Oh yeah, that was a script.
That was the only script that was in the entire presentation. But how to write a script was not what the presentation was about.
Right.
It's how to look at the products, understand what they're capable of doing, identify your needs, and how to align those products and find what you need to accomplish. So, you know, technically I can accomplish all the things that I talked about. I don't want to, but you know, I can point people in the right direction, get them the resources, or if I ever really need to, I know that I can, right? I can take that effort and do that.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good place to get yourself into is build some successes and feel confident that you can pick up a technology and learn it, because that is the key to longevity. Way too much change going on in this industry to get complacent on a specific thing.
Good point. Good point. Well, the VMUG here today, they had, I don't know, 400 to 500 people.
There was they had over 300 people show up in the first half hour.
Wow.
And I'm pretty sure they broke 400. So they had a really good turnout.
Awesome.
Yep. And I think they had 400 and some change initially registered, and they've exceeded that. So, which is a lot of walk-in traffic, which is really good.
Yeah.
Really happy for them.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. It was a beautiful facility.
Yep.
Great weather. Had a good time. Some great career tips and technology and automation tips. So I appreciate you being on the vChat.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
David, always a pleasure.
Take care, buddy.
All right. Thanks again.
Thank you for watching this episode of vChat, the latest in virtualization and cloud computing news and how-to. Eric, Simon, and David want your feedback, so send questions or ideas for future vChat topics to vchat@trainsignal.com.